Open relationships sound exciting to some, terrifying to others. But what really happens when you open up your marriage? Will it save it or destroy it? Today, we're going to find out the truth. From the battlefield to the bedroom, I've got Kelvin Pace. He brings courage, compassion, and clinical expertise to the world of sex therapy. He's a licensed professional counselor and ASEX certified sex therapist. A former Army medic and paratrooper, Kelvin now helps clients navigate intimacy, pleasure, and connection in a judgment-free, sex-positive space. His current focus is on mindfulness-based interventions to manage sexual concerns with individuals and couples either in or looking to explore non-traditional relationship orientations such as consensual/ethical non-monogamy. Welcome, Kelvin.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for having me.
Now, how did you go from the Army to sex therapy?
So I was a medic in the Army at 19. And I will tell you, as a medic in the Army at 19 in the late 90s, we talked about sex all the time, but really didn't know what we were doing. And so I think Howard Stern had a sex surrogate on, and she was talking about how sex surrogates can help. And of course, we all had to go watch the video. And then fast forward a little bit, I got stationed at J Bear, Joint Base Richardson in Alaska. And I was a line medic. And being a line medic, you became pretty much really good friends for the infantrymen. And you were their everything. You were their therapist, you were their chaplain. And so a lot of them started asking me about sex. And I really didn't have the knowledge base to talk to them about except for what I learned from Loveline and that little yellow book from a long time ago called Sex for Dummies.
God, there
Yeah.
was one of those I did not know.
And then late at night, I saw a show called Berman, and it was Dr. Laura Berman and her sister, and she was doing sex therapy and she was doing a focus therapy. And I was just like, my gosh, that sounds like a great job. I love sex. Then I could dress up, I can get out of a military uniform, dress up a nice suit and tie, and talk to people about sex. So that started my pathway into being a sex therapist. And then with me being raised Southern Baptist and my wife being raised Catholic, when I told my wife this great epiphany, she just hugged me. She was like, "Hey, I love it. I'll support you, whatever you do, but don't ever tell our parents."
And you just said that Southern Baptist and Catholic and sex therapy.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let me just, for the audience who may not know, a couple of things you mentioned. One is a surrogate partner, and the other is sensate focus. So starting with just definition wise.
Yeah, surrogate partners are professional people who can explore or help folks with a whole range of things, such as connecting with another human being, or they may also include possibly having sex with a person, but it's not always the case. But a lot of times, sex surrogates will work with a therapist themselves to create a treatment plan and intervention to help people that may not otherwise be able to form human connections or to have that possibility of helping with human connections.
Interesting. And I know what sensate focus is, but if you don't mind, I think it's a great tool.
Yeah, Sensei Focus is one of my favorite interventions. I like to think of it as helping people rewrite their erotic scripts, not to be confused with erotic script theory, which is based off putting people into different pockets of who they're supposed to be, but a lot of times individuals or couples get a way of having sex in a certain way for a long time or avoiding sex in a certain way. And Sensei Focus Therapy is really a mindfulness-based tool or intervention to help people reconnect and rediscover about themselves. We tend to focus more on the interest of touch rather than the goal of trying to get to an orgasm. And this is really a clinical exercise or intervention. So it's not really used to be a foreplay, but really for couples or individuals to get back in contact with their bodies.
Is that something they would do with a surrogate partner, or could you as a therapist teach it or guide? Or I know you're not supposed to touch your clients, but
Yeah, they could do it with a surrogate partner, but it is a clinical intervention and so I would teach them, give them the clients the instructions on how to do it because I can't, like you said, I can't touch clients. But I would usually sensate focus, the basis of it would have three phases. I like to add a different phase, which I call phase zero, where I'm explaining the ins and out of sensate focus therapy so my clients can feel comfortable about engaging it. And then each phase has a increases and touch. As far as the first phase, there's touching, you're touching for your own interest, no, focusing on pressure, temperature, and texture. Breast, chest, and genitalia are off limits. Where the second phase, where folks are touching, and you can touch the breast and genitalia, but the goal isn't to move to orgasm. The goal is for you to touch and understand your relationship to your partner's body. And then the third phase can be intercourse, but it's like we tell our clients to have, if it's a cishet couple, to have a quiet vagina. Men have iron hips, and you're looking at the relationship between the penis, the vulva, and the vagina, and you're not really trying to move to orgasm, but just really trying to stay in that place and connect it and being mindful in that space.
I think that's so important, especially for women, like where our brains, I mean, I obviously I know the female brain pretty well, where we've got all these different tabs open all the time. And I know even when the conditioning that we have as cis hetero women is it's about his pleasure. So if you're taking too long or you want to have pleasure, even there's guilt with that, and your brain is going in 100 different directions. I would imagine that's an excellent exercise to do yourself or as a couple.
Oh yeah, definitely, because that anxious mind gets going everywhere, and it's for both partners. Where a lot of times some of my guys get so anxious about their erection that they're like in their head and they are overthinking their dick, so to speak, and they lose their erection. And where their partners may be overthinking, oh my gosh, am I going to orgasm? Moving into goal-oriented sex, am I going to have an orgasm? And if I don't, am I going to hurt my partner's feelings? Instead of just being present in their body and moving and following pleasure.
Yes, that's great. I think pleasure is the measure, right? It's, as I think that was Emily Nagoski that says that.
Yeah.
So I met you as one of the educators in the Sexual Health Alliance program. You were doing the course on swinging, and that sounds like that is an area that you focus on couples that are multi-partnered in some way or another. Can we start by defining a little bit of what is open, poly, consensual non-monogamy, and then we can go into like more specifics?
Yeah, consensual non-monogamy is an umbrella term for relationship orientations that don't follow traditional monogamy. And the granddaddy or grandmama of the words is ethical non-monogamy, which was introduced or most famously introduced in Ethical Slut. But we researchers or therapists tend to go to consensual non-monogamy because we don't want to base it on other people's ethics.
Right.
And so the main thing is that everyone is consenting in the relationship. And now there's more of a movement of just calling it non-monogamy because of the fact that we're putting a value system on whether we don't call it consensual monogamy and we're moving to calling it consensual non-monogamy. So we want to pull that away of putting a value system on both. But with that umbrella term, there are different ways that we can do consensual non-monogamy. I have folks that identify that are consensual non-monogamy and consensual non-monogamous relationships, and how they define it is it's okay for us to flirt with other people. We're too busy to have a relationship with other people. We're not interested in having sex with other people, but we get to shed that shame and guilt about flirting and accepting flirting from other people. And that's how they define it. Poly tends to move into a place, or how a lot of poly folks like to define it is that it's about the love in the relationships rather than the sex. And then we can move into swingers, and swingers is more about our primary relationships, but it's more about the sexual connections with other folks. Now, there are poly folks that are swingers. And then there are some swingers that eventually move into poly. And then the open relationship space sometimes falls into the no, don't ask, don't tell space. And research has found that poly people in poly relationships and in swinger relationships tend to have more stable relationships because of their community. They have a lot more community rather than the open, don't ask, don't tell relationships because there's not really a lot of community because we're holding that in between. And so some disruptions can occur in those relationships.
Oh, that's fascinating. Really interesting. So I have been divorced, single, let's say 12 years, divorced 10 years. And I had two long relationships. And now for 4 years, I've been single. And I just started doing this work 2 years ago. And I am been a serial monogamist until then. And now it's really been hard to find a partner. And I wonder if I started to look on some of the apps that have non-monogamous people on them. And I have not entertained, I haven't gone on any dates with anybody who's open. And I wonder, I like when my partner gets jealous of me,
Yeah.
but I don't know how that would be in a situation in a relationship where I always say, I don't care if I fuck around, but if he does, then it's different. So how does someone who has traditionally been monogamous, whether they're single or they're in a long-term couple relationship and they're thinking of entertaining this, how does one actually do it? How do you know if it's the right thing for you? And can you know until you're in it? And then from there, how do you do it in a good way or in a healthy way, rather?
Yeah. Yeah. So I get a lot of couples that come in and they're interested in entering into the world of consensual non-monogamy. And I attribute it to my intake assessments because when people come in to see me, I ask a specific question, and that is, what's your relationship orientation? Monogamy, monogamish, or consensual non-monogamy? And they will come in, and a lot of people say monogamy. Few years later, they may come back and say, hey, we want to explore consensual non-monogamy. Can you help us on our journey? And when I'm helping folks transition, we're really focusing on the emotion. Just like there's toxic monogamy, there's toxic non-monogamy. And what I mean by that is a lot of people give advice about consensual non-monogamy based off of their own experiences that may not be healthy for the general. And so an example of this is when people say, hey, you have to always experience compersion while you're moving through consensual non-monogamy. And compersion is getting that joy of seeing your partner date or have sex with another person. And they say if you're not experiencing compersion or if you're experiencing jealousy, then you're too immature and you cannot go into consensual non-monogamy. And that's the toxic message. When the truth of the matter is, jealousy is an emotion. Everyone experiences jealousy. Some forms of jealousy or envy, and it can be on a spectrum. It can be an intense experience of jealousy, or it can be just a minor one. And so one of the things that we learn to talk about is how to process those emotions when they come up, because it's very important. Our emotions are not positive or negative, they just are. But our behaviors can be negative. So if I'm experiencing jealousy, what I'm teaching clients is how do we regulate? How do we co-regulate with our partners? And then how do we manage our behaviors when we're experiencing jealousy? If we're both agreeing to consensual non-monogamy and I slut shame or demean my partner because I'm feeling jealous, that's a negative behavior.
Right.
But if I'm asking my partner, say, hey, can I get some validation? Can we talk about my jealousy? This isn't yours. You don't have to fix it for me. I just want to talk about how this feels for me, and we can move forward. And a lot of times I also have clients that do chaining. And even my most experienced poly or consensually non-monogamous folks will say, I've seen my partner date all these people. I've seen them have sex with other people, but today I felt jealous and I don't know why. And so we chain back to how their day went. And they'll be like, oh, I got yelled at by my boss. I stubbed my toe on the couch. I had all of this stuff and I forgot my partner had a date. And it was the most emotionally inconvenient time for me for her to go in there. And that's when jealousy popped up for me. And so it may not even have anything to do with their partner and their date, but about the experience that they went through that day.
We are just getting started. Part 2 is coming, and trust me, you'll want to hear this. If you love this conversation, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow Taboo to Truth wherever you get your podcasts.